Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it. The odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, know you'll stand tall. Stand and watch from the sidelines, one too many times. We can get
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Ebony Sharonda Show. I am just so excited because today we are starting our brand new series called Clarity and Coins with my girl, my sister, Veronica Edwards. Now, let me say this right up front that I know as soon as we start talking about math, everybody's eyes glaze over. But this is not one of those boring conversations. This one right here is where we're going to just start really unpacking life, peace, pressure, priorities, purpose, planning, and yes, the coins too. Because the truth is, a lot of women are doing a lot, and I myself am one of them. We're working, we're building, we're caregiving, we're leading, creating, serving, and still trying to make wise decisions with what God has placed in our hands. And even with all that movement, many women still don't feel clear. I'm raising my hand because I'm one of those. We just don't feel settled. We don't feel at peace, especially when it comes to our finances. So today, we're going to go there. And I could not think of a better person who has way more discipline than I could ever have when it comes to these type of conversations about our money. And that's with my girl, Veronica. Veronica brings wisdom, insight, and practical clarity in a way that helps people get honest about what's really going on beneath the surface. So today I want to welcome my sister. Welcome back to the show. Veronica Edwards.
Thank you so much, Ebony Sharonda, for having me back. I'm a big fan. I was definitely listening to Sis, Let's Be Honest, that you kicked off the season with. I love your beautiful family. Shout out to Auntie, to Mika, to Jylan. If anybody hasn't watched that episode, it was beautiful.
Thank you so much. We had a great time. So that too is going to be one of our series. Just let's be honest. And so this goes into our repertoire on our playlist on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. So if you are not subscribing to the Ebony Sharonda channel, please make sure that you do so and make sure you hit that notification button. So every time Clarity and Coins rolls out, you can be the first on the drop. So I'm glad you're here and we've got a great conversation for our ladies today. So let's start here because I think this gets right to the heart of it. What do you think women are really craving when they say they want financial peace?
I think women are craving breathing room, predictability, freedom from anxiety, and confidence in their decisions. They just want that financial peace. It's not about having all the money, but it's more so, I always tell folks, you got to have a plan.
Yeah, yeah. So let's dig a little bit more into that whole plan piece of it, right? What does
Yes.
that look like? What does a plan look like?
So for me, a plan looks like knowing what's coming in, keeping it as simple as that, and what's going out and the timing of that. You know, Ebony, Sharonda, and I are small business owners. I'm still waiting on some payments that I invoiced on the first. I'm waiting on some payments from nonprofits that they're waiting on funding that owed me back in April. You know, and this show is going to air in May. So hopefully by my birthday, some of these things have come in, but for me to have peace, I need to know the timing. And then that allows me to have a plan B, a plan C, so then I can have that peace and not be up in the middle of the night thinking about how am I going to pay this bill on Friday when I know
Hmm.
I don't have a plan.
What? Because, honey, I have been there laying in the bed trying to figure out how am I going to cover this
Yes.
bill as we wait on checks to come in. And that is not a good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-mm.
a good place to be. So, can you tell us a little bit more data around really, you know, how many people are living out there like this? Like, are we the only ones out here, or is this common?
It's very common. Per bank rate, we found that 85% of Americans say they need at least 3 months of expenses saved to be comfortable. So let's pause on that because I don't know about y'all with this inflationary state that we've been in since COVID. Don't let people tell you that we haven't been basically in and out of recessions, about to be in a depression. Gas is over $4 where I live today, leading into Mother's Day week. So for me personally, 3 months of saving is just not achievable with all of the expenses that we have today. Most people on average is paying over $600-700 a month for a car note. They're paying over $2,000 a month for housing. They're paying over $1,000 a month in food. We haven't even talked about insurance and other utilities and expenses. If I just throw out that you need $5,000 a month, not a lot of people have $15,000 available to save. So with that being said, looking at the statistics, Bankrate also said, remember that number, 85% of Americans say they want 3 months, but only 46% say they actually have that much. And so that's saying a lot. And I know those rates are continuing to decrease because, again, this inflationary state that we're in, it's changing every day. I mean, I'm driving down the same street and I'm seeing gas go up in hours. And that's always indicative of what's happening in the economy. So, yeah, I think a lot of people want these things, Ebony Sharonda, but it's really hard to achieve right now in 2026 with all of the challenges that we have financially.
You have said a whole mouthful. I think that is the
Sorry.
reality, girl, mic drop, because that is the reality that a lot of people are living in. So when you hear people say they're looking for that peace, knowing all of this information, what do you think they really are looking for?
I think they want to know that they have money for a rainy day, that they can pay all their basic bills. If they want to take a little trip, that they could. If they want to get their nails done, just a little something for yourself, that they can do it. And I think people are now having to decide, do I pay this utility bill or do I eat? Do
Mm.
I continue sending my child to this school or do I homeschool? Like these are major decisions. I have people, we're getting older now, we have aging parents. How are we able to balance working, but yet still being physically available to provide caregiving? So it's definitely it's not an easy answer. It's very hard. Again, as a financial coach and advisor, I'm always telling people, even myself, what is the bare minimum that you can live on? And again, as small business owners, you have to have multiple streams of income because if one dries up, you have another lane that you can go through. Also, if you've paid into retirements, there are times that you can pull money out for hardship. There are times when you have debt that you can defer some of your payments to the back end. You just have to communicate. So that's something I do want to encourage people. Do not feel like you can't ask. I know that a lot of us feel like I made that obligation and I signed that contract. I have to pay. Me, myself, I've deferred payments. I've communicated to my lenders like, hey, it's tight right now. I've lost some clients. Um, you know, Expenses are tight. And without even blinking, they're like, no problem. So you need to lean on those that you have been consistently partnering with and ask for some grace at times because it's necessary.
Girl, that's a great segue into our very next heavy conversation. And that is, why do so many people feel like talking about this topic is so heavy? Like you just said, so many great ideas on just pick up the phone, honey, and
Yes.
ask for some help. Just
Yes.
tell these people. But why do you think so many people struggle with that? Even if you don't know to call your bank, why don't we just openly have these conversations about money?
Yeah. Well, now that I've been doing financial literacy with young middle schoolers, I've done it with small business owners, I've done it with young adults. It all comes back to money is very emotional. And this all starts at a young age, just like everything, as we all talk about. Ebony Sharonda and I are no strangers to therapy. We welcome it, we encourage it. A lot of our trauma, even when you don't think you have trauma, starts at home when you're younger. So people are carrying this heavy burden for money because of family patterns, fear of judgment, past decisions they had regrets on. We are our worst critics sometimes too. Like, give yourself grace. Treat yourself like the 5-year-old version of yourself. You don't know everything, but once you know better, you need to do better. So I think a lot of times, us women, especially, we feel like, oh, we're avoiding the numbers, we're being lazy. And it's not that, it's just that you feel very exposed. And a lot of us do not like feeling exposed and out of control.
Girl, listen, you just said it all. Another mic drop, boom. Okay. Last
Yes.
night I was teaching our co-starters class to our entrepreneurs, and this is we're the last 2 weeks we've been talking about finances. And
Okay.
so I'm leading those discussions. And that is literally what I said to them last night. I said, you need to be so dead honest with yourself, right? Like, and it's okay because nobody else can
Yes.
see this but you, right? Like, this is your truth. If you went out and bought that Louis Vuitton bag with your business money and you knew that you could not afford that Louis Vuitton bag, then you're the only person who has to live with that truth. How are
Hmm.
you going to be that impulsive in spending, but not
Right.
that honest with yourself that you couldn't really afford it, right?
Goes
Like,
both ways. Goes both
it,
ways.
it's a double-edged sword, is what the word
Hmm.
says, right? It goes out and it comes back in. And so you have to remember that you are the owner of these records, right? Like, you're the first person that's going to look at it. You're also the
Yes.
decision maker about whether
Yes.
or not you can and can't do these things. But it starts with really taking a hard look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledging that you've got to do this. You got to look.
Yes.
You got
Yes.
to peek under the cover.
Yes. And Ebony Sharonda, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. This is going to be airing, I believe, on my birthday, May
Yes,
27th. Holla at me if anybody wants to send me some birthday love.
please.
But this is all about financial clarity, gives you mental clarity. Like, this is not even an option. Like, we have to have that financial piece to also have that positive mental health. So it's necessary. And we know as small business owners, it's hard to turn it off. Everybody can tell us all day, like, journal and walk and do all these things, which is great. But it's really hard to turn it off if you know that you're staring down all of these bills and all of this financial stress, and you don't have anybody supporting you and you don't have a plan.
And I would love to hit on the fact that just because you have more money does not give you peace, right? And
Oh,
so a
no.
lot of people feel like, oh, what if I just had multiple revenue streams and I had this overflow of cash coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
oh, now all of my, needs can be met and my wants can be met. And that's not the truth about
Yeah.
peace, right? Peace doesn't
Right.
mean having access to more. It means being so good with what you got, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
even if it ain't enough, it's still
Yes.
good, right?
And that's applied to everything, because when I back in my former life, when I was a plant controller, you would hear the people on the plant say that we need more space and we can do more. If you can't be efficient in your small little space, I don't trust you getting more space. And it's the same with money. If you can't manage the $500 I'm giving you now, that's how the banks and the other financial institutions treat us if we want a loan, then that's why we have a credit score. So if your history is showing me that you really don't care, you can't get mad at me if I'm not going to support you financially. It's
Period.
just what it is. So, like you said, when it comes back to, a lot of us have been making good money for a long time, but that piece comes from having a plan, having boundaries, being consistent, communicating. So, again, you just have to be aligned. I think a lot of times people feel like they're out of alignment when I'm making all this money, but I'm not seeing it at the bottom line. So again, it's all about what's coming in, what's coming out, but you have to make sure you know the timing of those things. I can make a lot of money the back half of the year. That means I can't do as much on the front half, or I need to save so then I can balance it out. But again, it goes back to having a plan.
Great segue into our very next question. So let's talk about those women who are making decent money, but they
Mm-hmm.
still feel overwhelmed. What do you think is usually happening?
I think A couple things can be happening. Sometimes it can be that there it's things that's happening out of their control. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like how we're talking about, oh, I lost this client. That was out of my control. I can get more clients, or oh, my job now because of the economy has reduced my income. I was doing okay, but then it got reduced. If my income stays the same, but also all these other expenses are coming up that I can't control. Orange juice is $9. Blueberries is $8. I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying to do all these things, but it's kind of out of my control. So again, you're always going to hear me as a financial coach going back to you have to have a plan so that even when you're going to have these ebbs and flows, which we know is going to happen in life, that you always have a plan B and C so that if these things pop up, okay, well, I can go into this rainy day fund. And so that leads me to another stat with the Federal Reserve that found that 64% of adults can cover a $400 emergency expense or cash equivalent. That was back in 2024. And so $400, a lot of times people are like, well, what can I do with that? $400, Ebony Sharonda, feels like 4,000 when you don't have no money, so, and when we think about the 52 weeks in a year, people kind of poo poo on the, oh, maybe I could just save $5 or $10 a week. Well, now you have your rainy day fund. So instead of complaining and feeling overwhelmed, you have to start somewhere, and you can start small. And once you start seeing it build, you'll be motivated. It's just like working out. I don't want to work out, but I like the results.
Another financial conversation we had last night. It was the exact same, thoughts and sentiment to the people in the room who are, running businesses. But this is also the same to those who are just running their household. Like
Right.
if you don't really have a good idea on, all right, I get paid every Friday. This is how much money I actually bring
Yes.
home after
Yes.
taxes.
Yes.
This is how much my rent or mortgage is, my utilities, my daily expenses, and that's where that miscellaneous bucket comes into play. You really got to unpack it. You really have to see, because if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
don't really look at it, you don't know where to make changes, right? Because some things is we call them fixed assets, right? Like, or fixed
Yes.
cost, right? That you just got to pay your mortgage, right? You got to keep
Yeah.
the lights on. These are the
Right.
things that, like, no matter what, these things are going to show up every month. They may be
Mm-hmm.
variable costs there because they
Right.
change, but you know a roundabout what your
Yes.
bills is going to be every month. And so if
Exactly.
you don't get a handle on that miscellaneous bucket, you may not realize that you're paying $25 for Netflix when you can really just pay 7, right?
Right. Or
You
jump on somebody else that that might have it and have a little coin, or share with people. I know some people, hey, I'll pay these apps in the family, you pay these. I'm all about collective partnerships and being a part of a collective. Hey, Ebony, I
Mhm,
can do your books. Can you help me with some marketing? This person,
mhm.
hey, can you babysit my child? I'll babysit your child. We've gotten away from being a village. And Ebony, Sharonda, and I are Christians. You can go to any church in your area. There's places you can get clothes, places you can get assistance with your utilities, food. It might not be the type of food you want or the type of clothes you want, but if you really are in dire need, there's resources out here where you don't have to pay for anything. So that's something to think about too. But we don't want you to get to that point. But there is no shame in asking for help. Some months it's tight, and there's no problem with going to a food pantry.
Man, listen, I mean, pride to the side when you're really living life intentionally. So that really transitions us into the next question of, what are some signs that someone is building from survival mode instead of strategy? Because, you know, I think a lot of folks are in survival mode right now.
Oh,
How can we
yes.
put some intentionality around that and have a strategy?
So, Ebony Sharonda, we deal with this all the time, especially because I tell Ebony Sharonda she's an honorary accountant. And when it comes to money, everybody feels like it's an emergency. And, like everybody's coming to me like, Veronica, I do the books for the church school. When I come in the door, everyone's like, we wanted to grab you. We wanted to get this. And I'm like, there's no rush. Even when it comes to taxes, you can even file an extension. So some of the signs that we're in this survivor mode or we're in the overwhelm. Every decision feels urgent. There's no time to pause. We're always chasing the money, underpricing out of fear, taking too much because I need the money, avoiding the numbers, not reviewing your numbers, and not separating between immediate pressures and your long-term vision. So being in that survivor mode, as you can hear, it's not going to last long and it usually doesn't end well.
Mm. That's a lot to unpack right there, sis. I mean, a
Yes.
whole lot of things to unpack because, as you know, and as many of the listeners know, how many of us are actually thinking we're hustling, right? Because we're chasing that next dollar,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes,
Or how
ma'am.
many of us know that, we are out here getting we just taking on whatever. This is a good idea. You should do this. Yup. Now I'm cleaning, I'm filing taxes. I got a
Yes.
9 to 5 job. I got all these
Yes.
things I'm doing, and none of it is in alignment, right? Like
A
none of it
lot of
is
busy work. A lot of busy work.
busy, but you're not really in alignment with what it is that you're doing. So that's operating in a survivor's mode. And so now when we say, okay, how do we strategize around this? You keep talking about a plan. You keep telling us that there is important ways for us to be reviewing our financials and
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, get in alignment. We've given you all of the sauce at this point, right? Like,
Yes.
hey, I know I'm living in this, and now I know why I may be potentially living in this, and I know
Right.
signs that I could be living in this, and I also know how to get myself out of it. But the most
Yes.
important things that you and I can't teach is just do it,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of free resources out there. I always tell people if you're wanting any tips, Ebony Sharonda, I know there's some other questions that we want to cover, but I always want to make sure that we give some tips. Right now, everybody for the most part has a bank. If you log into your bank, it's going to tell you in categories what you've been spending. So you can get an idea. I usually tell people you need like a 3 month trend. Even look at year to date. This is going to air in May. Look from January until today and actually look at how much am I spending in food, how much am I spending in utilities, and look at how much you're bringing in.
Mhm.
Then you also can go to financial advisors, Edward Jones. They will work with you for a free consult. They'll put everything up on a screen and tell you, Ebony Sharonda, you're X age. If you want to retire by X age, this is how much you have in Social Security. This is how much you're going to have now. You have this much time. This is what we recommend that you can do for free. So there's a lot of free resources out there. And so sooner than later, you need to get a short term plan. And when I'm mentioning like Edward Jones, that's more of your long term plan because again, a lot of people are saying, well, I don't want to rely on Social Security. You're paying into it. Rely on it and get some other instruments as well that can help you. But you can't just say, I don't want to deal with this. Too much going on in the world. You deserve to put yourself first and you need to invest in you. And that's having a short term and a long term plan.
Period. So this is a fun segment. This is the segment that we're going to call "What You're Not Gonna Do," right?
Hey.
Okay, so here is where I'm going to ask you a question, and you are just basically going to let us know. The question is, so what are we not gonna do, Veronica?
Oh, what we're not going to do is not look at our bank account until it's at the end of the month. What we're not going to do is just feel overwhelmed, not communicate with anybody when there's all the help out here. And what we're not going to do is beat ourselves up for past bad financial decisions,
Mm.
period.
And period, poo. And there's that. So that's what we're
It's a new
not gonna
day.
be doing. We're not gonna do
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
don't come crying because we don't want to hear it because
Yes.
we're not doing that.
It's a
We're
new
not gonna do
day.
it.
We're not judging that former self. We know better now. We're going to do better. And we have all these resources. One of the best things, AI, Chat GPT, put that stuff in there. Here's my budget, or here's what I get in income. Here's all my expenses. Chat GPT help me with a budget. free.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many. That's the good thing with technology, is that it's allowing us to analyze and make plans where you don't have to be good in Excel. You don't have to be good to have a degree in accounting. You just need to know a little bit to use these tools to help you in the long term.
And I tell all of the people that I work with, junk in, junk out. If you
Absolutely.
lie to ChatGPT about what's really going on in your financial
Yeah.
situation, then you will get lies computed back to you. Okay.
Yes.
So again,
Yes.
this is another moment of transparency where we are telling the truth about our situation, because if we really want the help to get out of it, we have to be honest about what's going on. So since we're telling the truth,
Yes.
what's some things people blame on money that is really about habits or priorities?
Mm. I would definitely say saying I can't save while funding too many other things that are not in line on what we're trying to do. And that's a nice way of saying you don't need to take that trip, buy that car, do these things when you know that there's health bills that you have, or that that just basic things like your groceries at the end of the month. Because there's a lot of people that will tell me, oh, I'm broke, but nobody's going to tell because I'm going to be cute and I'm going to be at this place and that place. Or we all get to that point where we say, well, when I die, I can't take the debt or the money with me. But while we're here, we want to make sure that we have things in order for sure. Also, you can't say, I need more money when the issue is that you just aren't keeping up with it. Because we talked about that. You could be making six figures or you could be making half of that. My parents never made, I don't think, over $60,000 in a year. And they put two girls through college. Their house is paid off. They have life insurance. My mom is able to live a really good life, had a pension, had all of these things, way more money than even at times that I've had, because the money coming in way exceeded the money going out.
Exactly, exactly. And that's not because they weren't living through recessions. I mean, there was
Correct.
definitely economic down spirals during the course of the years that they were raising you girls. We think about
Absolutely.
Ronald Reagan, you think about
Interest
some
rates 18,
interest.
20% for a house.
Wow. Yeah, that was crazy, right?
They had
So,
their gas hikes too in the 80s and strikes. And my dad was
hmm
part of a union and worked in New York. So that helped him be able to get a pension. But there were more pensions during that baby boomer time. We don't have that. We have to invest in ourselves. If it's set plans and simple 401ks and 401ks and 403bs, but a company now is going to say you contribute and we'll match. But not a lot of people are just going to give you the money. So, society is showing us that, hey, you have to advocate for yourself. Nobody is just going to hand you anything. They'll match you, but you have to step up to the plate to be matched.
period. Bring it all in, sis. Bring it all in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so let's go to coins and confessions. This is our
Yes.
truth-telling moment. Has there ever been a season where you had to slow down and reassess what success looked like?
Oh, I'm in that now. What are you talking about? That happens all the time. And especially for me being a small business owner and I have a podcast, and then I also have a child that's now about to be 11 years old. You're growing up with your kids, you're growing up with your business. A lot of times your business is like your baby. So the most recent time was actually just this year, just really sitting back. I lost some clients I needed to lose. I gained some opportunities that I needed to, but I've really been investing in myself, in my podcast, and really believing in, just because I can't see it right now, I know that I'm planting the seeds for the future. And that is the hardest part for clarity, because we're talking,
Mhm.
I have a plan, but I'm not seeing the results of that plan just yet. So that is the hardest part. Just being transparent is just continuing to push through, show up, smile, do all the things when your bank account might not match it all the times.
I think that you and I are both in the same season. We literally were having this conversation
Yes.
off air before we got on air about just being bogged down with so many outside distractions that
Yes.
sometimes it really eliminates your ability to have that creativity that you need because you're
Mm-hmm.
not focused on the bigger picture. You're in the weeds, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so having to get out of the weeds has been my reassessment, right? It's like I trust in the
Yes.
Lord. I know
Yes.
that He's going to do what He said He's going to do. I know that He's
Yes.
a good God and I serve a good God who is going to
Amen.
reward me for my time and effort and kindness and
Obedience.
love and
Mm-hmm.
surrender, and he sees all the things, right? And
Yes.
so if I don't see it right now, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just not my
Right.
turn, right? And I have to
Yes.
just be patient and faithful and obedient while I wait patiently for my turn. And so being able to have that level of thought, um, intentionally operating within that space,
Yes.
is a hard place to be. And it requires that you really step outside of the day-to-day practices of the hustle, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
so as we were talking about throughout this conversation, where we're not really spending all of our time focusing on chasing money, right? That we've
Yes.
got to have a plan with the
Yes.
money that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, work towards the things that God has led us to do with our gifts and our talents, that we're still making sure that he's a priority
Right.
first.
Right.
And then all the other things will happen for you. And so I have had to really get to that point in my life where I could accept that I had no control,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I'm just present.
Yeah. And, also because society has framed working and things
Mhm.
and money with success, we also have to reset and remember success is my health, success is my family, success is what I'm doing in my community. Success for me is that my son is an amazing swimmer now and he's doing great in school. Success is that my mom is. Thriving, and has had some health challenges, and she's still here. That's success to me. And I think sometimes if we look at what social media is saying, which we know be fake half the time what people are posting, then we can go down that rabbit hole and end up on the other side of things. But I think we all need to just take that time to pause and really think about what were we created to do? Were we created to make other people rich? Were we created to have a bunch of money in the bank? Or were we created to really be giving back to our community? And, again, being an example of, if you're a Christian, being an example of Christ.
Amen. 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 And so before we close out, I just want to ask you one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
I love for people to walk away with just one small thing, one tangible thing that they can take away for today that they can do within the next 24 hours. What would that be for you to provide them to gain more clarity?
Ooh, in the next 24 hours, I would love for everyone to journal out all of their financial fears, all of their financial stresses, and in quiet, like just for 5 minutes, just look at it. Look at it, yell, scream, do whatever, be okay with it. And then I would ask you to ask for some help. If
Mm,
that's just talking to somebody, if that is trying to get assistance through a financial advisor, chat GPT, but try to do something different than you ever have done before. But it starts with you journaling out those stresses and just looking at it and then reaching out to somebody that can help you with just one of those things.
mm. I love a good journal. You guys know
Yes,
that. I love a good
yes,
journal. All right.
yes.
Well, this has been so much fun, so insightful, and such a great conversation because it reminded us that financial peace is not just about the numbers, right? It's about clarity, it's about honesty, it's about priorities. It's about recognizing where pressure, habits, overwhelm, and survival mode may be shaping the way we move. And I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is that sometimes the answer is not just more. Sit with that. Sometimes the answer is not just more. Sometimes the answer is clearer. Clearer priorities, clearer plans, clearer decisions, clearer understanding of what this season actually requires. Veronica, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and the truth to this conversation. Tell our listeners a little bit about what you've got going on, how they can catch up with you, and all the things.
Thank you so much for having me. It was definitely a pleasure. I also have a podcast, The Veronica Edwards Show. You can check us out at the Veronica Edwards Show channel. You can also go to balancevirtually.com. I'm a CPA. I've been practicing now, for almost 20 years. And so if anybody needs assistance for financial literacy, all ages, I just did a financial series with middle schoolers. I'm here in Western North Carolina. I do things virtually or in person. So please reach out, all things accounting, and there's no judgment. We meet you where you are.
Boom. And there is that. And also, she is on every single social media platform. So if you are on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can
Yes.
find her in all the places. So thank you again, my dear my sister, for joining us. And to everybody watching and listening, we want to hear from you. What part of this conversation spoke to you the most? Drop it in the comments and have a conversation with us so we can continue to manage these conversations so that they are fruitful to you and your clarity and getting your coins. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with another woman who is building, stretching, learning, and trying to find peace in the middle of it all. And remember, here on the Ebony Sharonda Show, we are growing in faith, clarity, confidence, and activation. We'll see you on the next episode of Clarity and Coins with my girl, Veronica Edwards.
See you
Thank you.
guys next time.
To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be all right. So quit your worrying. I get it. The odds seem stacked back against